Hi, and welcome to DrupalBrief. This is an AI-generated summary of another video, podcast, or blog post. If you want to learn more about what's being discussed here, then please go check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is the new #1 open-source development and hosting platform. It has all the functionality of the expensive platforms, but at very affordable prices. If you're looking for a new hosting provider, contact us for a demo before you get locked in. Okay, that's it. Make sure to click subscribe, and here we go.
Welcome to the deep dive. You send us sources, we pull out the key stuff fast. It's your way to get up to speed, maybe have a few aha moments,
Okay.
Today, we're digging into making Drupal CMS easier, specifically contact forms. Our source is the Talking Drupal podcast, episode 499, Contact Form Initiative, featuring Jay Hogg from Oomph.
Right. And for you, the learner, maybe you're prepping a web project or just keeping up with web tech or, curious about how this stuff works. This deep dive will give you a really solid handle on the contact form initiative.
What it's about, the challenges, where it's headed.
Exactly. We've got some surprising bits and pieces, things that might really resonate.
And we're your guides. We did the listening, the sifting, so you get the important bits. Now, Talking Drupal also touched on the local tasks more module and mid-camp. Interesting stuff, but today, it's all contact form initiative.
Yeah, definitely the main event. But actually, before we dive into that, they did talk about a neat little tool earlier in the episode, worth a quick mention, the module of the week.
Yeah.
It was the Local Tasks More module by Jacob Ruckowitz.
Okay, local tasks more. So picture this. You're in Drupal, maybe working on a node, a page, and you've got all those tabs, right?
View, edit, layout.
Revisions, translate, maybe others, depending on the site. It can get really, really crowded.
Totally. And this module, Local Tasks More, has got a simple idea. It lets you hide the less common tasks.
Okay.
Puts them under a little more drop down, usually just an arrow icon. So the main things you use, like edit, stay visible.
That makes sense. Keeps it cleaner. So how do you set it up? Is it complicated?
No, sounds pretty straightforward, actually. There's a configuration form. You pick where you want it active, mostly node edit pages.
All right.
Then you can reorder the tasks, hide ones you don't need, and even set a threshold, like if there are more than 5 tasks, hide the rest.
Flexible.
Yeah. And it's in beta, but actively maintained, got basic tests, works on the front end and back end with standard themes. The developer wanted something simple, not a whole UI overhaul like some other modules try to do.
They mentioned a use case that really clicked for me. A client kept accidentally unpublishing things because the button was right there next to edit.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We've all done stuff like that online, right? A module like this could just tuck that unpublish away under more and prevent those slip-ups.
Exactly. It's interesting because some admin themes, like Jen, they try using scrolling for lots of tasks, but that doesn't always help on the front end, where editors might be working. So this module, it kind of fills that gap.
And the name, Local Tasks More, pretty much says exactly what it does. Always appreciate that.
Yeah, the podcast hosts like that it enhances core Drupal functionality rather than reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
They even wondered if something like this might end up in Drupal CMS itself someday.
Because it solves such a common annoyance.
Right.
Okay, so that's a neat little usability fix, which actually is a perfect lead-in to the main topic, isn't it?
It really is. The contact form initiative. It's also all about usability.
So this initiative came out of Drupal Starshot.
That's right. One of the, I think, 14 core initiatives. Starshot's big goal was making Drupal CMS more attractive, especially compared to platforms like Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, the ones that feel easier to start with.
And the target user here is key, right? The marketing pro.
Exactly. Someone who needs a contact form now doesn't necessarily know HTML or deep Drupal stuff. They expect it to be simple, like on other platforms. That's the benchmark.
Got it. And this isn't finished just because Drupal CMS launched.
No, definitely not. It's ongoing. They have a backlog of enhancements planned. What's out now is implemented as a recipe in core.
A recipe. Okay, what does that mean practically?
It means you can install it with basically one click. It's like a prepackaged feature set.
Cool. So click the button and what do you get?
You get a block containing a contact form, and it sets up a dedicated page like contact, puts it in the navigation.
Oh, nice. With default stuff.
Yeah, default text like contact us, the basic form fields, name, email, message, and even a little note about reply times get you up and running really fast.
But you can't tweak the form much right now.
Not easily, no. That's intentional, keeping it simple initially. But the plan is definitely to allow adding common fields like a subject dropdown, and configure basic settings more easily later on.
And they're thinking about newsletter signups, too. That seems like a big one.
Huge. Yeah, they're looking at integrating services like MailChimp, but also free alternatives. The goal is choice, letting the user pick their provider and connect it up without a big fuss.
Okay, now, the big decision. Using Webform instead of the built-in core contact module. That seems interesting. Webform is powerful, but also kind of complex, isn't it?
It is. And they definitely hesitated because of that complexity. But ultimately, they went with Webform because of its power and extensibility. They knew they'd need it for future stuff like that newsletter integration.
So it's like choosing the toolkit with more options, even if you only need a screwdriver right now.
Pretty much, yeah. And to avoid confusing users, the recipe actually unpublishes the old core contact form.
Which does make you wonder about the future of that core module, doesn't it?
It really does. So for now, the recipe gives you a solid basic form. If you do know Webform, you could customize it more. But that's not the main path.
Right. The focus is simplifying common tasks for everyone else in future updates.
And there was this discussion, should future things, like a specific donor interest form, be separate recipes? Or should they keep adding to the main contact form recipe?
Tricky balance.
Yeah, the guiding idea seems to be keep it simple. Avoid overwhelming the user. Maybe separate recipes for distinctly different things makes sense.
Kind of like how the AI recipe handles API keys for different services.
Exactly. That could be a model. A clear, guided setup for things like MailChimp integration within the contact form context.
And here's the thing that surprised me from the discussion. WordPress doesn't have a built-in contact form.
Apparently not. You need a plugin. So Drupal CMS, with this recipe, actually offers something out of the box that its big competitor doesn't.
Huh. That's actually a pretty good selling point.
It really is. And it suggests this initiative could become the standard way to do contact forms in Drupal, especially once Project Browser makes finding and installing these recipes super easy.
Looking further out, they mentioned Experience Builder coming in fall 2025. What's the hope there?
The hope is that Experience Builder can provide that simpler UI layer on top of Webform's power. So you get the ease of use for common tasks, maybe dragging a pre-configured contact block onto a page, but the robust Webform engine is still under the hood.
Making the power accessible.
Precisely. They even did a quick proof of concept, building a donation form easily using Webform and Stripe integration via a recipe. It shows the potential.
So why did Oomph, Jayhawk's company, decide to lead this?
Well, Jay mentioned they work with all sorts of clients, from highly technical to not at all. They saw the need firsthand. Plus, it's about contributing back to Drupal, the platform they use, and being part of its evolution.
And it wasn't just a technical task, was it?
No, that was the key point. They thought it might be, initially. But it quickly became clear the real challenges were UI and UX. How do you make this genuinely intuitive for that non-technical marketing person?
Which leads into that whole debate about the name field, right? First name, last name versus just name. Seems small, but it's not.
It's really not. They spent a lot of time on it. They landed on a single name field, primarily for inclusivity.
Inclusivity? How so?
Because not all cultures structure names as first and last. A single field accommodates diverse formats much better, especially for international audiences.
Okay, I get that. But what about the counter arguments? Marketing folks often want separate fields, don't they? For CRMs, personalization?
Absolutely. That was the pushback. How do we personalize email saying, hi, first name? How do we sort by last name in our CRM? Valid points.
So how did they resolve it?
The thinking was, for a basic contact form submission, maybe sorting by last name isn't the absolute priority compared to being inclusive. And they floated the idea of maybe adding an optional preferred name field later for that personalization angle, the trade-off.
Really thoughtful one. What about the technical side, like making sure emails actually get sent?
Yeah, reliability across different hosting setups is crucial. That's another benefit of using Webform. It saves the submissions to the database by default. So even if an email glitches, the data isn't lost, it's a backup.
Good safety net. And who gets the email initially?
It goes to the main site admin email, the one set up during Drupal installation. But they know that's limiting, so adding multiple recipients is definitely on the roadmap.
Makes sense for teams.
And there's potential for helper modules, 2 smaller modules that could simplify specific web form configurations within the Drupal CMS context without needing to expose the whole complex web form UI.
Okay, so being the initiative lead, like Jayhawk, what does that actually involve day to day?
It sounds like a lot of coordination. Reporting progress, planning next steps, talking to other initiative leads to avoid conflicts, setting milestones, being active in Slack channels, contributing code on GitHub, keeping the momentum going.
Were there big, unexpected roadblocks?
The main one seemed to be that core contact versus Webform decision. It wasn't clear-cut initially, but the overall Starshot leadership leaned towards Webform for its future potential.
And they needed a technical fix to avoid confusion.
Right. Philip Thrilling came up with a way to essentially deactivate the core contact forms configuration when the recipe is installed, so users wouldn't see two competing options.
Sounds like that typical Drupal community collaboration.
Very much so. Jay emphasized how supportive everyone was. He also credited other Oomph team members, Rachel Hart for UX/UI, Rob for early architecture, and Pamela, the Drupal CMS project coordinator.
And Jay's background is more UX front end, right? Was he hesitant about the back end stuff?
He mentioned feeling confident because he had experts like Phil to rely on for the deeper technical aspects. It was actually Rachel Hart who first suggested Oomph take it on, and leadership agreed quickly.
How did they actually get started? Was it a formal process?
He described it as fast and loose, actually.
Yeah.
Based on Oomph's reputation and past contributions, it seems like after a few initial meetings, it moved pretty quickly into asynchronous work, reporting via Slack and Google Sheets.
And the timeline was pretty aggressive.
Yeah, planning in summer 2024, beta by November 24, strong release candidate by January 25. Really moving.
Any advice from Jay for others thinking of leading an initiative?
His main point was the value of community support. Don't make big decisions in a vacuum. Discuss things thoroughly. He really highlighted how unique and collaborative the Drupal community is.
So, looking forward, what's next for the Contact Form initiative?
The focus seems to be those enhancements. Easier form edits for common cases, multiple recipients, and seeing how Experience Builder changes the game, hopefully bridging that gap between Webform's power and making it easy for regular users.
And still that question of whether to add to the existing recipe or create new ones?
Exactly. That balancing act between simplicity and capability continues.
Okay, so let's wrap this deep dive. Key takeaways. The Contact Form initiative aims to make a basic, essential website feature, the contact form, much simpler in Drupal CMS, targeting non-technical users.
Right. The strategic choice of Webform provides future flexibility, even if it adds some complexity under the hood right now. Overcoming challenges like the name field debate and the core versus Webform decision really highlights the thoughtful process.
And the role of the community and future tools like Experience Builder points to an exciting direction for Drupal's usability overall.
And for you, the learner, this directly addresses a pain point. It's about getting that essential contact functionality without needing to be a Drupal guru. It streamlines a critical part of building almost any site.
So here's a final thought to chew on. If Drupal CMS and tools like Experience Builder can simplify something like forms, which rely on a powerful module like Webform, what other complex website features could become much more accessible to non-technical users down the road?
Yeah, think about things like e-commerce setup, complex workflows, maybe even integrations. Where else could this simplification approach make a big difference?
Definitely something to think about. If you have questions or ideas for Jay Hogg about the initiative, his email is jhogg@oomphinc.com. That's JHOOJ@oomphinc.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn.
And for the Talking Drupal hosts, Kathy Beck is kbeck303 online and kbs.com. John Picosi is picosi.com and John Picosi on socials. Nick Lame is Nixon pretty much everywhere.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it valuable.
Yeah, let us know what you think, and definitely send us your suggestions for future topics. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, we're done. To close off this podcast, I just wanted to remind you that this brief was a fully AI-generated summary, and we take no credit for the original content. If you want to learn more, then check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is the new #1 open-source development and hosting platform. It has all the functionality of the expensive platforms, but at very affordable prices. If you're looking for a new hosting provider, contact us for a demo before you get locked in. And if you like this podcast, hit subscribe, post a link on social media, and recommend it to 2 friends. That's it. See you next time. Bye for now.